Coming up on Tech News Today, remotely set a printer on fire, used Google Maps to escape from IKEA, and Facebook apologizes profusely. Should we believe them? We'll tell you next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
Got it.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, November 29th, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by the new Tech TriCaster 850, a 24-channel video switcher that lets you broadcast, stream, and record HD video all at the same time. Find out more at newtech.com. Bienvenidos a Tech News Today. Me llamo Tomás.
Me llamo Sara.
Soy Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And, of course, we are speaking in Espanol in honor of our guest host from Paris, France, Mr. Patrick Beja.
Hola, ¿qué tal, muchachos?
Well, you're a native, so you just put us all to shame with your...
That was my intention.
Your Franco
I don't know what to
Spanish.
do now.
Yeah.
You can speak Spanish, too.
He can do everything.
It's time to panic now.
Let's do tech news. Can you do tech news, huh?
Not in Espanol, but yes.
Okay, well, we can do it
In English.
in Inglés. Facebook has settled with the FTC over the privacy violation problems. All privacy changes must be opt-in. Facebook agrees to 20 years of audits. First one comes up in 180 days, and then they have to do one every 2 years thereafter. And they are barred from making further deceptive privacy claims, which seems obvious. And they have to prevent access to deleted accounts within 30 days of the deletion. These are all things that Facebook proposed as part of a settlement. We've talked about them on Tech News Today before, but today the FTC approved them and unanimously passed them into a public comment period before they go into action. So they could still be altered, but everybody seems to like these. Public knowledge says, you know, this is good stuff. Making everything opt-in is a good thing. If you don't know why they're under the gun, in December 2009, they made a bunch of privacy changes, one of which made people's friends lists public without their knowledge. That caused most of the furor.
When they were formerly private, so it wasn't just... It was,
They were upgraded into
it was
a new...
something that nobody was notified about.
Spring 2010, they made a bunch more changes trying to address these complaints, which triggered even more complaints. And that sent it to the FTC. Mark Zuckerberg, the most interesting thing for this, Mark Zuckerberg wrote a blog post, a freaking novel.
Over 1,400
I don't know if
words.
he's doing NaNoWriMo, but you know, I think he could finish in a couple more days if he kept
all
going.
15,000 words that day.
He admitted that Facebook messed up with Beacon. That was the one several years ago where they had advertisers getting information without your knowledge. He said they messed up in communicating the privacy changes, and he said, we can always do better. I'm committed to making Facebook the leader in transparency and control around privacy.
Well, isn't that nice? Except that Facebook already promised all sorts of privacy settings that they didn't deliver on in the past. So this is almost like Mark Zuckerberg gets to write this long post saying, we've made mistakes, but the future will be brighter, and their slate gets wiped clean. And now in the future, they just have to be better about having users opt in or being really transparent about privacy changes, where in the past they kind of have a crappy track record.
Yeah, but I mean, has Zuckerberg ever done this before? I mean, we've seen a lot of blog posts with Facebook. We've seen, you know, we'll have like these faceless people at Facebook saying, oh yeah, we were taking care of this. We have these new privacy functions. You're going to see all these new opt-in stuff. But this is Mark Zuckerberg, or at least it says it's Mark Zuckerberg, writing a 1,400.
You're very careful, but I think
Probably.
I'm sure somebody
good.
put it together.
I'm pretty, yeah. Well, I don't know.
It's a
It was
1,400
probably
piece.
written over by someone else.
Somebody probably looked it
Yeah.
over. Okay, it's been approved.
It's so
If
long
you're going
and
to be the head of
rambly.
a big company,
Oh, yeah,
maybe
I'm sure you guys
have
are right.
one or two people look at this.
But I
and
bet he wrote the first draft as long as yes.
Well, but of course he's going to write something, because now Facebook could be fined up to $16K per day if they don't change their tune. I mean, now their hand is being held to the fire if they don't make good on privacy promises, whereas before they just said, oh, whoops, didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, if only you had an organization representing, you know, the people and the users of Facebook who could control these kinds of things. I'm being old socialist here and saying that maybe the FTC overlooking stuff from time to time is a good thing. But I think there's another... if I can play the devil's advocate here for a second, I agree with the spirit everything, and everyone's saying, be more forthcoming with our privacy and telling us what they're doing with our data and all of that. But isn't there an argument to be made for making changes happen on a piece of software or a service by making changes opt out instead of opt in? Because if you make them opt in, no one is going to opt in, or at least not a significant part of the user base, and your improvement is never going to happen when you have such a big user base, right?
Yeah, that's always the argument from the other side is, well, if we don't opt people in, if we don't make them opt out, then no one will ever pick up our stuff. I think those are overstated. People do, in crazy numbers, opt in to things like email newsletters and marketing messages when they are appropriate. However, there is the fact that fewer people will opt in than would stay if they had to opt out. I've always felt that the best way to do this sort of stuff is forced opt. Make somebody make a choice. You actually get a higher response rate than if you just make them opt in, because you're forcing them to make a decision, but you're not transgressing and making them opt out and forcing them into something that they didn't agree to.
Right, because they have to take a moment, look at it, and say, what do I want to do here? And then they're not angry later when they get that newsletter, because they opted in.
And I think that would still satisfy this requirement that people opt in, because you're forcing them to make an option. The question is that going to make everybody angry if every time Facebook changes privacy, you have to go in and answer all of your questions?
Spend time reading it and researching it, yeah.
There are so many things that Facebook does, and it has to do with privacy. People are quite, I don't want to say hysterical, but they don't want to give up any of their privacy. But if you took that view of things, which is valid, and I understand that, at the beginning of Facebook, that service, which everyone loves and uses all the time, because there is a lot of good in Facebook and using Facebook, and a lot of people do it, that service would not have existed, because it has everything to do with privacy and making our data less private. I guess my argument is, if you don't force people into things like that, then they will never have it. They will never agree to it.
I think that's what
they only understand how good it is once they've been forced into it for a couple of years.
I think it's a little oversimplifying it. I mean, Facebook is not a small company. They control your experience when you're on Facebook. They can put this in the right pane entirely. Your entire ticker could be taken over by, we have this awesome new feature, you should try it out. They don't have to opt you in, or you have to be forced to opt out. They can do advertising on their own pages. It's not like they can't go, here's a sponsored post that stays on your news feed for like a month, and you can decide whether you want to do this or not. If you don't do anything in 30 days, well, you're not in. It's just like, I mean, it's Facebook. For some people, the internet is Facebook, so why not use that?
Yeah, I know, that's true.
They could, like, what if that blue thing changed, that blue bar changed to red for one day, and they're like, we're calling attention to this new feature. People would notice. A
personal appeal from Mark Zuckerberg.
People would notice.
It's going to be like Wikipedia all over again. I don't want that.
And people notice
that's
it, though.
Annoying.
Versus
that's
losing
a horrible
privacy.
User's experience, though.
Or they can do the Gmail.
It was a
right?
personal appeal. What else do you want?
How many people try Gmail Labs and Google Apps stuff, right? I mean, that stuff's hidden in the features. Like, you have to really seek them out.
I will agree that people try stuff more often than Patrick is giving them
I would say not the majority of people on Facebook.
Well, it's because there's so many.
Would want to be clicking around in Facebook Labs.
Not the 99%. Is that what you're saying, Patrick?
Exactly. Think of the 99%, people.
We should also note that as part of Zuckerberg's post, Erin Egan will become Chief Privacy Officer of Policy. She was previously Director of Privacy. And current Chief Privacy Counsel, Michael Richter, will become Chief Privacy Officer of Products. So they now have two Chief Privacy Officers
Two
in
CPOs.
A fantastic example of title drift.
Too bad they didn't have 3 CPOs.
How many chiefs do you need?
Considering that Erin Egan was already covering privacy when all of these privacy debacles
and
went
so was
down.
Michael Richter, because he was the privacy counsel.
And now they just have sort of better titles,
yeah,
and are going to work together to make sure that they really mean it this time. I don't know. I mean, I think that the fact that even though $16,000 is not a lot of money to Facebook, I mean, over a 30-day period, Facebook finally has, well, it's not an incentive to do things the right way. I mean, it's a legal obligation with fines on top of it to finally get their act together.
I'm going to be the evil government overseeing stuff guy again. I'm sorry, but what better example is there than if the people, the users of Facebook, who are in large part American people, want that privacy thing monitored more closely why not have the government involved and making sure? I mean, I guess that's what they're doing now. But why are you guys not mentioning that this could be an incentive for them to do this?
I think
it's the solution.
I think that's what has happened. I think that's why I haven't mentioned it, because to me it feels like that's what we got. Is the FTC coming in and saying, okay, you have to go through an audit every 2 years, and you have to opt everyone in, and you know the government is saying all the things that they have to do. So what more should the government do?
Yeah, but you're still saying, oh, but what guarantee do we have here? You know, that guy was already there, this guy was already there, so nothing's
well, they
going to
change.
change.
Learn their lesson.
One thing is going
so I guess what I'm saying is you have to have the government force them into line, apparently, or they won't act well. And I think what Sarah's pointing out is you got the same people who did all the privacy violations who were around for all those privacy violations. There was a different CPO when this stuff went down who has left the company, but those people are still there. So it's not like they brought in fresh blood and they've turned over a new leaf entirely. What was really motivating them here is Facebook wants to get this all taken care of before they issue their stock, which the Wall Street Journal believes is going to happen this summer. Wall Street Journal says that they're considering a $100 billion valuation and issuing $10 billion of stock. Bloomberg notes that the current record holder for an IPO is Infineon Technologies AG, which launched at $5.23 billion in 1999. So if this was true, Facebook would double the record amount for an IPO. Wall Street Journal claims that Facebook already started discussions with the SEC, although Zuckerberg has yet to make any final decisions. Now, before we make our best guesses about this, we should note also CNET reports, or reminds us really, Facebook expects to have to start public filing of financial reports no later than April 30th, 2012. Facebook has said this publicly because there is a law that says it doesn't matter if you're public or private, if you have more than 500 owners, you have to start filing public reports, and Facebook passed the 500 mark this past summer. So they say by April 30th, they're going to start making public filings. Conventional wisdom is once you start making public filings, you might as well just IPO.
Yeah, I mean, provided that your company is in really good standing and you stand to make a lot of money. A $100 billion valuation for Facebook sounds pretty good. Especially if they have to start disclosing financials. What are you laughing at?
I'm just thinking, no, I was agreeing with you. I'm not laughing. It's just, this is my face. Apparently, it's very funny. What I was going to say is that they have 800 million people on there, so they're valuing just like these are active users. So a $100 billion valuation is not so crazy. Mm-hmm. What other like entity has 800 million active community members? I mean, that's insane. So I mean, the amount of reach they have, $100 billion. I mean, I don't know. Is that too low for something like Facebook? I mean, we've seen crazier numbers than that in the past. And raising $10 billion that first day ought to be pretty easy because whatever they start their IPO at, that like people are going to make a ton of money on that first sale. And they sell their $20 ones for like $30, and then it moves up.
Well, considering the euro will have fallen apart, will have gone into a second depression, and no one will have any money to buy stock at all, I think 10 billion is a little bit optimistic.
Optimistic.
I shall not respond to that.
Darn it, that was the whole point of saying it.
Thank goodness Zynga's going first.
Well, you know, Groupon had a great IPO, but their value has fallen to half of what the IPO went. So, I mean, I think Facebook's trying to delay this as long as they can, but it looks like April 30th is about as far as they can delay it.
It seems like it's a good time for Facebook to finally do it. I mean, 800 million is the big number, and I don't think they're going to go any higher. And anything that can happen from now on seems like it could sort of lower the perception of the value of the company. So, yeah, it seems like it's finally time now.
I think that you should sell Greece to Facebook.
Just throw it in there.
I think it solves everything for everybody.
The country? Or
yeah.
like the liquid? I was just...
Well, a couple of islands, and yeah, let Zuckerberg do his IPO first.
Actually,
then he buys a couple of islands.
Greece
and we're
sells a couple of islands to Zuckerberg. He puts his servers out there. He doesn't have to deal with the FTC anymore. Greece has a bunch of money to pay off their debts. Europe is saved. Facebook is free. They can violate our privacy as much as they want. Everyone's happy.
I like that plan.
All right. Let's move on to blowing up printers. Columbia University researchers, PhD student Ong Kui and Professor Salvatore Stolfo have discovered flaws in HP printers that allow an attacker to steal personal info, attack networks, and even make part of the printer smoke and burn This is all because the printer can accept software updates without examining digital signatures, and it checks for updates each time it accepts a print job. So you infect a print job, send it, the printer sees a firmware update in it, and doesn't check for a digital signature and installs the firmware. You've owned the printer. Now you can start the printer as part of a botnet and go on an attack of the rest of a network. The one that's getting all the headlines, though, is in one demonstration of an attack, Stolfo and Quee showed how a hijacked computer could be given instructions that would continuously heat up the printer's fuser, which is the thing designed to dry ink, and eventually cause paper to turn brown and smoke.
Now, if you just keep hitting it with like heat up, eventually
just send the command.
You have a meltdown.
Think about it. Digitally, you can send that command over and over without any pause.
Well, I'm not going to say that blowing up someone's printer is in any way cool. That sounds dangerous. That said, it was something that I would have really liked to test internally here at TWiT until I realized it's not so much an explosion. It's just a sort of a slow meltdown.
Well, and as a matter of fact, a thermal sensor shuts the printer down before it catches on fire.
So HP
it just
already
smoked.
has mechanisms in place to make sure this doesn't happen.
HP's scrambling now to go, it didn't catch on fire. It wouldn't catch on fire. It actually worked the way it was supposed to, in that it shut the computer down before it could catch on fire. They're also, HP's chief technologist Keith Moore disputes these claims, saying that since 2009, printers have required digitally signed firmware. And besides, if the printer's behind a firewall, it shouldn't have an issue. But the researchers say, yeah, that may be true, but some of the printers from before 2009 are still available in stores. So there may be vulnerable models out there you can buy that could be attacked. So anyway, HP's coming up with a firmware fix for this.
Batteries are still way more dangerous than HP printers right now.
Did you hear about the iPhone that it started smoking? Again, everyone's saying it caught on fire. It didn't actually catch on fire.
Yeah, I saw some interesting headlines there. They said, is it Apple's counter to the Kindle Fire was the headline. And I was like, oh, very clever. I'm serious. That's what I clicked on. I'm like, great link bait.
Nice.
But it's a smoking iPhone.
This is really one of the most disappointing stories I've read this month. The headline on Ars Technica is HP printers can be remotely controlled, which make me think they're going to get up and start moving around on artificial like Android feet.
They're not transformers.
And set on fire. Researchers claim nothing's being set on fire. I was very disappointed.
Well, the researchers claim that they could catch fire in future versions. It just didn't the time they tried.
As long as the paper is doused in like gasoline.
As you do.
Which you always do for...
You throw a lit match at the printer when you set a print job.
You're probably, cleaning the paper with gas.
Or you use rubbing alcohol
Smoking
somewhere.
a cigarette.
Right.
You're drunk, so the cigarette falls out of your mouth onto the printer. A lot of things have to happen.
This is so surprised at the malware.
This is a Mythbusters episode waiting to happen.
The timing of it all.
All right, let's do some TriCaster magic, Mr. Jason Howell, to show off the capabilities of the TriCaster 850 that is helping to bring Tech News today to you today. It's like having your own giant television truck right there in the palm of two hands. It's a little big, but it's not so big that you can't take it with you. That's the magic of the TriCaster. It's like having a giant TV truck, but it's a 24-channel system you can carry around with you and use it for desktop or portable production. We use it for both here.
Yeah, we set it on fire. See?
The screen on fire.
We could set the printer on fire if I had the printer on a camera.
Don't do that.
Okay.
It's a bad idea.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got professional transitions. You got the ability to switch. Hey, if you're watching the video of the show, you see it in action every day. TriCaster 850 Extreme lets us broadcast, live stream, project, and record HD video all at the same time.
Good stuff, Jason.
Yeah, I know.
You really
isn't
bringing
that
out the big guns, aren't you?
I'm trying to pull up some new ones here, and I didn't think about this before we did the
baseball
thing
one's
here.
always good.
Yeah, the baseball is good, but the unfortunate thing is I just have the football one.
There we go. That's more in season.
Yeah, so there we go.
That's a real beauty.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hit you in the head with the
To
football.
find out more about TriCaster, visit newtek.com. That's NEWTEK.com. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Onward and inward. Microsoft has missed the boat on tablets, according to Forrester Research. In Q1, that was earlier this year, January, February, March, 46% of consumers surveyed by Forrester Research said they would most of all prefer a Microsoft operating system on a tablet. In Q3, that number has fallen to 25%. So almost half of consumers in Q1 said, yeah, I want a Windows tablet. And now, in the fall of the year, only 1 in 4 saying, I would like a Windows tablet. Apple increased to 28% of those surveyed from 16%. Android went from 9% to 18%. So Microsoft being called a fifth mover in the space because their tablets aren't coming to, at the earliest, the middle of next year. By that point, it may be too late. Apple, Samsung, and RIM are all expected to have second and even third generations of their tablets out before Microsoft, who invented this space, by the way, has their first generation, at least of the Windows 8 tablet.
Well, and let's not
they
forget the
invented
Kindle
this
Fire
space.
tablets. I assume that they're getting factored in here. I mean, by Q3 of this year, even though we hadn't seen Fires yet, people had heard about them. We're excited.
Barnes & Noble Nook also has been considered a tablet by many. What were you going to say, Patrick?
Just gonna rant. Thank you for the transition with the French flag there.
You bet.
I was just gonna rant about the fact that Microsoft isn't really exactly invent this space. The tablets they were putting out before were very different animals than the ones we're seeing today. But I guess that's debatable.
Although the HP tablet that it has Windows 7 on it right now, that one is more similar. It's different than the stylus tablets.
Well, it's Windows 7. It's not designed for a touch experience. But okay, that's a different debate. But the thing I want to say about these kinds of studies is that they're really deceptive because they lead you to believe that the game is, the situation for Microsoft is horrible and that they can never recover from this. And first of all, you should never discount Microsoft in anything. They're so enormous that they can always come back. And
right,
second
look
of all,
at the Nook. I mean, look at the Zune. I mean,
yeah, okay,
Windows Phone.
No, but look at the Xbox. Look at Windows Phone. Exactly, they were nowhere. They didn't even have a phone a few months ago. Now they have something that some people consider could come back in a while. They're in it for a long run. And now they have Windows 8, which a lot of people are discounting, but they're in a much better position now with the coming of Windows 8 in a few months than they were maybe 8 or 12 months ago when they didn't even have Windows 8 on the horizon.
That's a really good point because Forrester does say Microsoft will benefit from the Windows 8 ecosystem, that people will embrace Windows 8 desktops and laptops, and that will help the adoption of tablets in Microsoft's ecosystem because it will also be Windows 8 and it will be part of the whole package. So it's a very good point to say don't take these numbers as they are now to be 100%. I think what Forrester is saying is it's going the wrong direction, and Microsoft has a big advantage in Windows 8. Forrester doesn't think they have a very big advantage in Windows Phone. They don't expect that to catch on much more than it already has, but they probably have to do something else if they want to dominate this market.
Yeah, but one of the things that's been going on in this whole year, this started in Q1, they're talking about these numbers. I mean, Apple's set up a lot of advertising. There's been a lot of buzz about the iPad. Amazon's Fire. I mean, they have a market presence. Now, Microsoft, in the beginning of the year, you're like, okay, what tablets are coming out? I don't know what's coming out this year. Who knows? Maybe Microsoft will have something. Maybe Amazon. But people think that Amazon was going to have a tablet in January. I don't remember that. But these are tangible products that people can point to. Samsung's got something. Amazon has something. And Apple has something. But to say now, like in this quarter, hey, do you want to buy a Microsoft tablet? What is that? There's the Windows 7 one that no one really should ever buy at this point.
I don't know if I'd say it that strongly.
Well,
but right.
Well,
it's an enterprise thing. It's definitely not a consumer thing.
Right now, it's not aimed for that. And the thing is, that's why Microsoft's been pushing Windows 8. Once I'm thinking, we covered this a while ago. Microsoft's going to be doing a lot of the advertising when it comes to Windows Phone. And I'm assuming they're going to be doing the same thing when they introduce Windows 8. When they have that ad blitz, and you start seeing this thing a lot more, I think a lot more people are going to be aware of Microsoft's version of the tablet, well, the new version of the tablet, as opposed to, oh, well, does Microsoft have anything? I mean, people don't even know that Windows Phone exists, let alone Windows 8.
But the question is, when that Windows 8 tablet comes, and I think you're right, it'll become more aware and people will start thinking about it more, and I think that's a fair criticism of this study, is people really aren't thinking about Microsoft and tablets these days. But when it comes, will it be the Xbox where people go, whoa, Microsoft just came into the market that was dominated by other players and brought a really good product that's competitive, or will it be the Zune? And people look at it and go, wow, Microsoft came to a market, boy, are they late. Other tablets were doing these 6 months ago. These tablets are behind the times. I don't want one.
It does. I don't think it really matters how people perceive the Windows 8 tablets because it's going to be Windows 8, and the sheer market share of Windows in general is going to push it. Now, it might not beat the iPad, it might not even beat the Kindle and the Kindle Fire, but it will be present. I think, you know, it's very difficult to argue that it will not take any foothold on the market at all.
The other thing is when Apple was dominating with the iPod and the Zune showed up so late, there wasn't ever like a really good secondary competitor. There was Creative. They were out there. They were kind of getting a small bit of market share, but there wasn't like this great number 2 out there. Now there's Android. They're actually taking a bit of market share from.
There's not much in
tablet
tablets.
Space. Well, more so than any other thing did with the iPod.
Yeah, but I bet if you look at the domination of iPod Touch and the domination of iPad is dominating the tablet market more than the iPod Touch was dominating the MP3 player market.
I'm not talking about the iPod Touch. I'm talking about the original iPod, the thing that the Zune couldn't beat.
Oh, yeah. Well,
remember how far the iPod got?
I'm just saying, I think iPod,
market.
okay, that's a good point. iPod probably dominated more than iPod Touch, but still, the iPad is dominating, you know, 80, 70% of the market, and that's what the iPod did. So I think they're equivalent.
Well, you know what Microsoft should do is figure out a way to run their software, which people know Microsoft for, on something like an iPad. Wouldn't it be nice to get Office documents?
Like
that is an interesting point, because one of the benefits that we were kind of circling around here of a Microsoft tablet is, oh, but I'll be able to run Microsoft Office on it. And the Daily reporting that Microsoft Office will launch for iOS in 2012. Office for iPad's price point rumored to be the same as iWork. $10 per app, so $10 for Microsoft Word for the iPad, $10 for Microsoft Excel for the iPad.
I see a lot of people buying those $10 apps.
That's a
I mean, they'd have to sell a lot
cheap
of apps.
price considering how much you pay for the real Microsoft Office.
Certainly, but at the same time, I mean, I don't really use the iWork suite. I don't use a lot of Microsoft Office these days either, but I know a lot of people who at least know that Office brand. They'd be comfortable paying $30 for their Excel, their Word, and I don't know.
Well, one of the
reasons,
reasons,
they have PowerPoint or something.
Yeah,
like
and one of the reasons that I don't use Microsoft Office more often is I've got OpenOffice or LibreOffice now, and so I don't need to use it. But even that, even LibreOffice, I don't use that often. I use Microsoft Word or Excel when I have to because somebody sent me a document and it's the only way to open it. But most of the time, Google Docs can open those documents, and so I do it in the cloud, and that is something Microsoft is on as well. SkyDrive update released today cleaned up the process of sharing docs from apps quite a bit. So now it doesn't matter. Well, at least they claim it doesn't matter. I haven't tried it out, but they say it doesn't matter whether you're in Microsoft Word for desktop, Microsoft Word, the web app, or any other apps. And they don't drop any hints here, but if they were to come out with an iPad app, it would fit into this situation. You can collaborate, and all your saves are saved in the same folder. You don't have to have separate folders anymore. They've really cleaned up Office 365, added support for Windows Phone 7.5 Mango, added support for OS X Lion operating system. By the way, Daily claims new Office for Mac will be coming out closer to the end of 2012. So I think this is really smart of Microsoft to say, well, of course, we're going to continue to make a tablet operating system. Of course, we're going to push ahead with Windows 8 because we're dominant in the desktop market. But let's not abandoned a growing market. If there is a 70%, 80% market share for iPad, we should be selling software on that. Remember that Microsoft didn't always dominate the operating system market, but they made tons of money selling software. Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel were just as important in the 80s for Microsoft as Windows. And they kind of got fat and lazy with Windows being so dominant. I think this is a good sign that they're willing to say, you know what, let's sell software. We shouldn't care what platform it's on.
Well, and choose the platform that, at least for now, for the foreseeable future, is the runaway winner.
Right.
Well, then, if you combine that with Office 365, if you start playing with it on your iPad and you actually have some syncing capabilities, you might go, I might want to buy the $300 full version of Office or whatever it even costs. I mean, I only use iWork or the free versions of this stuff because this is low cost or this is the same kind of environment I want to be in. But if you have a synced up experience between your iPad, that's what they're supposed to do with Pages, right? You're supposed to be able to use your documents between there. But if you get a cheap version of Office in there, this could get Mac users to do this more. Because, I mean, they still have the Mac business unit at Microsoft. They're still developing Office. Yeah. This is something that it would be like, oh, great, my stuff all works together. I don't have to worry about formatting. I don't have to worry about, is it going to work in Pages? Is it going to work on LibreOffice? Because so many businesses still use this thing. So you might as well still have, the standard.
And you're putting your finger on something really important here. It's the syncing capabilities, because at present, you don't have a good ecosystem for having your documents everywhere. The iWork suite works well on the iPad and even iPhone, but they don't sync with your desktop version. of iWorks. You know, you can't use your document, the same document that you saved on your iPad, and edit it immediately afterwards without downloading anything on your Mac. And I'm sure, you know, I think that people are not using Office documents, I mean, you know, work documents on their iPads because it's not easy to sync all of that. And if Microsoft can provide it, I'm sure it would be something that people would use, especially since, as you're saying, a lot of people, especially in offices, are using the Office suite already.
Although I pretty much use Google Docs for everything because I know I can access it on almost everything. The one place where I have a problem with it is on the iPad because Google Docs Mobile Edition doesn't give me the editing capabilities in the spreadsheet version that I need.
No.
If, I'm not saying I will do this, but if Microsoft came out with Excel for the iPad that integrated with Live 365, so I get the same capabilities out of Microsoft Live that I get out of Google Docs, but I could also edit on the go through the Excel app on the iPad, suddenly that is a compelling advantage over Google Docs for me.
Especially since, at least for this show, we're in a spreadsheet most of the day.
Yeah.
Editing, not just reading, but editing. And when I'm on my iPad, I really can't do anything but read stories. I can send little notes to you guys, but it takes way too long. It's not a good system at all. Microsoft could do it better. I would switch.
Yeah. And I've used the Excel Live to do Windows Weekly. That's how Paul Thurrott does his, or actually I think he uses the Word.
OneNote on SkyDrive.
OneNote on SkyDrive. So, you know, I know it works. It can work. Finally, Google Maps for Android. This is the 6.0 version of Google Maps for Android is out. And one of the big features it touts is indoor maps. So airports, malls, retail stores, the United States and Japan getting indoor maps. Places like Mall of America, O'Hare Airport, San Francisco International Airport, retail stores like Macy's, Bloomingdale's, IKEA. There are people still trying to get out of IKEA that
Don't
could
they
have
have
used this.
big arrows on the floor that tell you how you can
And then you go and
move
you follow
along?
them and you end up going in a circle.
You do not.
And you end up in the cafeteria eating Swedish meetballs.
Well,
and so you can stay there
sounds
for
like you
weeks
have some
on end.
experience.
But see,
with
now
this.
you can do Google Maps, take me to meatballs instead.
Right.
Directly.
Get right
you don't have
to
to
the
go through the
meatballs.
kitchens or the baby stuff.
They don't
You go
want
right
you
How
there.
can you get lost in IKEA? It's one line. You don't go left or right at any time.
Just following the man.
We have a different IKEA floor plan here.
Maybe.
We have to because you go left and right a lot in the one here in Edmonton.
I feel like this.
Yes, but I mean, there's no, like choice. You just go to the one through the one, app anyway.
I think that this
There is no
it would
choice.
really come in handy in a mall, for example. There's a mall downtown San Francisco. It's huge. It's very confusing, and I'm not sure where I want to go. I want to go to one store, and I have to find one of the little kiosks where they have a map, and then I'm looking it up. It's like if I had this on my Android, which I don't have. Android always gets everything first.
Everything. It gets everything first.
I'm just kidding. No, if I had that, and it makes sense that it would be on mobile, that could really come in handy.
I like this in like larger libraries because you never know where anything is in there. And then maybe the supermarket. That's where I want this. I want to know where the crackers are by the soup or the peanut butters for some reason by the bread. I just want to be able to ask Google Maps instead of having to seek that stupid little chart that they keep at the end
Or
of
you
it.
could just ask one of
God
the people
forbid, talk
who
to a
work.
Talk to a
person.
person? No, talk to the phone. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not gonna be-
Supermarkets aren't usually that big. Are you going to these like gargantuan?
I'm going to the supermarkets. I'm not just going to markets.
I want this for airports. In fact, there's an iOS app that does this for airports that I've used that is very handy, where you can say like, okay, I've got an hour layover here. Where's the nearest restaurant? What are my choices?
Yeah, like can I hop over to the next terminal?
Yeah. How
Am I going to have
far
enough
is
time?
That's very handy. I like that. If you're a business owner, you can upload your floor plans to Google Maps, get your location added as well. If you have a supermarket and you would like to help Iyaz
Or
out.
just a market.
Yeah.
You got a market.
It's not going to be very
it's
helpful.
a little
there.
bigger than
the
like a corner
GPS error
store
might be
market.
bigger than your market.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
It depends. New top menu element in the app allows you to quickly jump between features. A new Places home screen gathers relevant info about various restaurants and shops that you're nearby. So check it out if you're on Android. Google Maps for Android 6.0. Let's move on to the News Fuse. Chanel says, we don't have to wait for SOPA. We can get U.S. federal judge Kent Dawson in Nevada to order 700 domain names seized and transferred to GoDaddy and redirected to a page indicating they've been seized. Additionally, the judge has ordered all search engines and social networks to de-index any links to the sites. Apparently, Judge Dawson believes he has jurisdiction over the entire internet.
How?
Karl Lagerfeld, cracking the whip. New York Times reports that a consortium is interested in buying a minority stake of Yahoo. Silver Lake, Microsoft, and venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz are some of the big players in that consortium. All Things D reports that Mark Andreessen is contemplating a position as an executive chairman, depending on whether his friend Jerry Yang is okay with an arrangement like that. Andreessen is also reportedly concerned that nobody could, not even himself, turn Yahoo into a growth company.
Yikes.
That's a big task right
I
there.
know, it's like draw the smallest straw.
Imagine that
You got to
in
be
the
executive
interview.
chairman, dude.
So you think you can turn this company around? I don't really know.
I don't think so. I don't think anybody can.
At least he's a realist. New York Times also reporting that AT&T is in negotiations with Leap Wireless to sell some of T-Mobile's wireless spectrum and a large part of T-Mobile's customer accounts to make the AT&T T-Mobile merger still happen. AT&T hopes this makes Leap large enough to be a viable competitor to put away the DOJ's antitrust concerns. If it works, AT&T gets to have T-Mobile's precious wireless spectrum. Oh, and by the way, the Wall Street Journal reports that the FCC will allow AT&T to withdraw its merger application.
So nice of them. RIM did something that a lot of people think is smart. They announced BlackBerry Mobile Fusion, a new piece of security software that allows iOS and Android devices to be managed the same way BlackBerries are, playing to their core strength here. Starting in March 2012, IT admins will be able to remotely wipe, lock, and manage software and security settings for all types of phones with one interface. Sorry, Migo fanboys, though. No support for you. You can run rogue on the network. They'll never know.
Can't beat them, join them. Go RIM. So if you're the kind of person who likes everything neatly labeled, with ratings, the CTIA and ESRB have created a new app rating system that will be backed by some major players like the big four wireless carriers in the U.S. and Microsoft. So after an app is reviewed, it'll get a rating similar to what you see on video games. Apple and Google are not on board with this rating scheme because, well, they already have their own rating system in place. And they're like, no.
I liked it when the
off us.
Catholic Church rated all the movies. Maybe we should go back to that for apps.
That'll work well.
That would work well in
Heathen.
France.
Heretic.
This is rated blasphemous.
Okay.
Stop the presses. Apple is working on next-generation iPhones and iPads, and, code from iOS 5.1 beta says so. The next iPhone is codenamed iPhone 5.1. The next Apple TV is codenamed J33.
What up, J33?
Much more interestingly in the beta is the inclusion of APIs that allow developers to hook into Siri, so you may be able, can't speak now, to speak to more apps in the future. Their update also looks to squash bugs and help out that pesky battery issue in iOS 5.
A $15 USB tethering app popped up in the Apple Store. I got it before it disappeared because it was promptly booted out. The iTether app was available for around 7 hours. Quickly became the #1 top-grossing app in the U.S. App Store. No official statement from the app developer or Apple on why it was allowed or booted, although the app maker said that they had played by the rules. Apparently not, because it violated all kinds of App Store and wireless carrier rules.
So
but
what
it
you
allowed
get-
you, when you're plugged in by USB, to tether your internet connection to your desktop or your laptop.
And you've tried it and it works?
I haven't tried it yet. I just got it.
You just got it
I didn't get a
before.
chance to try
By
it.
the time I woke up this morning and saw that, I was like, damn, too late. Senior advisor to the European Court of Justice, Yves Beau, published an opinion saying that the functionality of a computer program cannot be protected by copyright because it would make it possible to monopolize ideas. Beau's opinion relates to a dispute between SAS and World Programming. While the opinion carries weight with the ECJ, it doesn't really bind the court, which will make its final ruling next year. Either way, it'll have a huge impact on software rights in the EU.
Amazon responded to Congress's concerns about user privacy revolving around its Silk browser. The company says the web addresses passed through Amazon servers are held for 30 days. Data will not be associated with individuals, and SSL traffic won't go through its servers. Amazon also said that it will not rent or sell the data it collects. Representative Ed Markey is still not satisfied, saying he wants to know more details as to what Amazon will do with the data it collects. I thought they answered that. Just not.
Let's move on to the randomizer then.
Randomizer.
The head of one of Europe's largest IT service companies has banned staff from sending each other email, saying it wastes time and it's outdated. Thierry Breton, CEO of Atos, and a former, do you know him? A former French finance minister, Patrick?
Yep, Thierry Breton. Well,
Thierry
I mean,
Breton?
I don't know him personally.
You know
but,
of him.
I know of him, yeah.
He wants a zero email policy to be in place within at least 18 months, arguing that only 10% of the 200 emails his employees receive per day on average turn out to be useful. I think this is a brilliant idea.
I think he's really onto something.
I absolutely do.
But won't this just create more meetings, which waste even more time?
No.
Like, let's all meet to talk about something we need to talk about.
Go into more of a messaging format.
When have it's
more
email
immediate
ever prevented a meeting?
Well, they haven't prevented them, but aren't you? You have to still communicate with all these people. So
Yeah,
how
but
are
I'm
you going
just
to replace
saying,
that?
all of you're not email isn't replacing meetings right now.
I see what you're saying.
He's overreaching a little bit, but I think it's the secret silent thing that every single person thinks at the back of their head when they get into work in the morning. You're like, I have too many emails. I don't need that many emails. Everyone gets looped in every single conversation where they might need to be informed. It's too much, and he's saying it's too much. Maybe he's saying we should have nothing, and that's a little bit too much too. But there has to be a middle ground.
Dear Iyaz, regarding what you said about emails, let's have a meeting tomorrow.
Okay, and as long as it actually works in the Google
say,
Calendar, it's
Iyaz,
great.
did you get Tom's email?
Right,
He
and
sent
make
you an
sure-
email like 5 minutes ago.
Right.
We should meet about that.
Yeah, and
I'll call
Patrick,
you up about it, too.
Maybe Patrick's
Did you
right
get
that
my
this
email?
is overreaching, but how many times do you hear that? Did you get my email? It's like, if you could just go up and talk to me anyway, why didn't you just talk to me instead of sending me an email and asking me if I got an email?
Stop stupid behavior in an office place.
It can help if they say, look, no more emails.
I'd like to see the results of this experiment.
So some people are going to still act stupid, granted, but it will force people to realize that they don't have to send an email for everything. Email gets sent a lot of times to cover your ass, not because you actually are trying to communicate.
It's a paper trail.
And this is essentially throwing the baby out with the bathwater, maybe. But he's like, we're not going to allow that. You're going to have to come up with it. You're going to have to talk to each other. I've answered emails, freaked people out because they send me an email from like 5 feet away, and I get up and walk over and answer them in person. Like, I think,
only 15
I think email is important when you have something that I won't remember, like a date or a time, some kind of information like that. But otherwise, I'd rather talk to you in person. Or even on IM.
I prefer not to talk to people in person, but I do like IM because if I'm sitting here and Tom asks me something, I don't have to turn around from my desk. I answer him back. And it's in real time. Works great. Wonderful.
Let's move on to the calendar.
Lisa, which is the code name for an Ubuntu variant called Linux Mint, has arrived. Welcome, Lisa. The distro has a new desktop that's based on GNOME 3.2 and Mint GNOME shell extensions customization. Also, the default search engine is DuckDuckGo.
Ooh, look at that.
You're a fan of DuckDuckGo.
I like the DuckDuckGo.
You did a little
I should use it
experiment
more
a while
often.
back. Verizon Fios customers can now sign up for that new Xbox 360 service, the one that'll let you control live TV via a Connect, a.k.a. your hands, like Minority Report. Existing customers can call Verizon to add in it. That's exactly how you'll change a channel.
Or you're a zombie or something.
Well, if you're watching a zombie show, it's kind of fun because you
Get
feel
into
like
it.
you're kind of into the fourth wall.
Swatting flies.
So you need, you can add an Xbox to your current service if you're an existing customer. But along with Xbox Live Gold, you also need to subscribe to both Fios TV and Fios Internet. So it's going to apply to specific people who actually want all of this. Spotify makes its big announcement tomorrow. All Things D says, they think anyway, it's going to be the ability to let third-party developers tap into Spotify's music library and make it available to their own users.
That's perfectly reasonable and probably a good thing for Spotify to celebrate, but I'm so not excited about it.
I'm not either.
It's a very smart thing for Spotify to
Yeah.
do, though. We'll see.
New direction. Nintendo posted a 3DS update to its site saying that the firmware refreshed promised by the end of this month is now in the final stages of internal testing, and now it will be released by December 8th. You better mean it this time, Nintendo, because you've broken our heart once. Zynga's IPO roadshow reportedly begins Monday. That's sort of when they all put their suits on and parade around in front of people who have a lot of money and convince them that they need to purchase some shares. Roadshow!
Occupy our IPO.
And stay there. Don't sell.
1%. Please buy our IPO. Let's check what's incoming.
Incoming message.
We got a voicemail with an interesting theory about who might buy T-Mobile's assets if AT&T doesn't end up buying T-Mobile.
Hey guys, Hey Tech News
That's right.
Today crew. I've got a question for you, Walt from Delaware. You mentioned who might buy the T-Mobile assets and do something with them. How about the talk about Dish Network taking some of the satellite stuff that they purchased recently and combining it with it to offer something to go along with their Blockbuster online and also their satellite TV? Just an idea. Thanks, and love the show.
Thank you.
Good voice.
Yeah, I know. What radio station you work for? Because you got an amazing voice. What do you think? Dish Network, do they have enough cash to buy a T-Mobile? They probably couldn't buy it outright, but if there was some chopping up of it going, I could see them jumping in and buying some spectrum. They want to get into the LTE wholesaling game.
Well, if they want to get into LTE, I mean, they only have HSPA at T-Mobile, so I'm not sure what they would.
Well, they could do LTE at T-Mobile. I mean, AT&T wants that same spectrum to do LTE.
It definitely seems
it's not like the spectrum; it can't handle LTE.
Good point. I was thinking, like, you're not going to buy the infrastructure.
No, you would buy the company. That's what I'm saying. You buy the spectrum.
Dish is a really good viable option. I mean, like they wanted to get into this space anyway, so why not?
For part of it. Patrick, what do you think? Do you care? You don't care. That's us.
I am so uninterested in that T-Mobile thing. You have no idea. I barely know what's happening between AT&T and T-Mobile. So T-Mobile on its own.
That's most of America's opinion too.
Move on to an email from Steve, who said, "I wish someone here. You'll care about this. I wish someone could tell me how it is that in Europe and many other parts of the world, multiple carriers use the same frequencies, 850, 900, 1900, 2100, and still exist and make money. Well, in the U.S., the wireless telecoms feel they need to have separate bands from one another to compete. I feel that the FCC should allow the AT&T T-Mobile acquisition along with future spectrum auctions under this condition. All owners of the spectrum must be able to license out their frequencies to other carriers at a fair rate to other service providers." He goes on with a lot more thoughts on this. But why is it, Patrick, that you've got those 4 bands, and it doesn't matter what carrier you're on in Europe, you can use your phone across all the bands, whereas here in the U.S., Verizon doesn't work on Sprint, doesn't work on AT&T, and only Edge works between AT&T and T-Mobile. Even their 3G services don't work on each other.
You know, I don't have a perfect answer for this, but I would give you 2 sort of snippets of answers. The first one is standards, and they're always good when everyone works the same way or everything works the same way. And second, I would ask you, why is it that your carrier's devices aren't compatible between one another? You can just make them compatible.
You know, actually,
you decide to actively make them not compatible, probably for competitive reasons, but it's an artificial limitation that they're putting in place.
I have a feeling that one of the reasons is because AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Verizon are competing across the entire country. And in Europe, you have carriers specific to the individual countries, so France to Germany. Now there are carriers like Deutsche Telekom and Orange that operate in separate countries, but they operate the marketplaces are individualized. So if we had, you know, a marketplace for California and then a marketplace for Texas and a marketplace for Illinois and so on, they might all have an impetus to try to make it so that their phones worked in the other regions because you want to be able to travel around and use your phone. But in the United States, AT&T can say, buy a phone from us and it'll work all over the country. You don't even need to worry about other carriers or roaming or any of that sort of thing.
It's possible, but I would have to check on this. I'm not sure, but I'm wondering if there isn't some government or European legislation level of ruling.
There's some on roaming, I know that, yeah.
On roaming, definitely, yeah, but I think from the beginning, the compatibility of the networks might have been imposed by the government.
All right.
Possibly.
On to the next email.
Do you guys like things like HDMI version cables?
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about this because of the whole 3D HDMI cables and all that sort of thing.
Tama Home writes in, got something from HDMI.org, which states adopters may no longer use HDMI version numbers in the labeling, packaging, or promotion of any cable product. This is effective immediately for any references to the HDMI specification version 1.4, and adopters have a 1-year grace period for removing references to earlier versions of the HDMI specification when describing their cables.
Yeah, so scroll up on that, Jason. You can see the actual cable labeling requirements, or scroll down, I mean. HDMI standard with Ethernet, HDMI standard automotive, HDMI high speed, and HDMI high speed with Ethernet. So what you would need for 3D is the HDMI high speed, I think, if I have that right. But what they're essentially doing is trying to get rid of the version numbers because they think that confuses people.
Well, it certainly does.
And they want a descriptive standard. It's still the standard. It's still 1.4 or whatever. They're just changing the names and saying, don't use those confusing numbers anymore. Use it natural language label.
Well, that's sort of like low bandwidth, high bandwidth.
Yeah.
Maybe the 4G industry could get on board with something like this.
Isn't like standard with Ethernet, standard automotive, and all the other ones. Aren't those confusing too? Is it like a bad way to fix a problem?
Well, it may be confusing that there are so many different variants, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you have a number, I need 1.4, whatever. I get that. Here, I need high speed.
But a lot of people don't know
and I'll get that.
A lot of people don't know they need 1.4, but they know they need Ethernet.
Do they know they're going to need high speed with Ethernet?
Well,
I don't.
If the TV companies and the manufacturers of televisions and I guess Blu-ray players, if they put the same logo, like HDMI high speed, you need this, at least you start matching them.
Yeah, right.
But if it says HDMI 1.4, people might not know where to go. I mean, that was always a spec that if you had to seek out, they didn't have a little fancy logo. It was HDMI V 1.4, which you hit in the spec sheet. So maybe if you can match the pictures, it'll help you. I don't know. Last email from Russell. AT&T team, love this show since day one. Anyway, I have some feedback for show 381 that can help with two things. You mentioned podcasting apps and that Jason has to build a best of show. Well, we have a podcasting app that lets you share a position in an episode with someone else. So people could scrub to their favorite bits, tap one button, and send it straight to Jason.
I like that.
It's called Pocket Casts, and it's available for both iOS and Android at pocketcasts.com. A lot of our users already listen to your show. We even featured it once.
Thank you.
So just thought it might be a great way to help you build a best of. Plus, we'd love to spread the word since we think it's better than the alternatives. And he mentioned some other podcasting apps.
Russell is developer and co-founder of Pocket Cast, so of course he thinks that. He should think that. When we think of for the featuring, that's a cool feature. So if you're using Pocket Casts, submit the exact moment. Just scrub to it and send it to TNT at twit.tv for the best of. If you're not using Pocket Cast, twit.tv/best of still works, and we still need people to submit their favorite moments, especially ones from earlier in the year. We've got a lot of ones from recently because those are easier to remember. But if you've got some moments from January, some February, Iyaz was on their CES version. Maybe there's something funny there in retrospect now that he's on the show all the time. I don't know. Twit.tv/best of though.
You know what always makes a good TNT moment? When there's a French person in the show. I think that works. Any French person will do. Just
be careful though; it's offensive to some. So you don't want to.
The French in general,
yeah, just the accent. We're going to have a French off after the show. We'll get to that. But thanks to everybody on our Reddit, technewstoday.reddit.com, for submitting stories, voting them up or down. We appreciate that. That's it for this edition of Tech News Today. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. TNT@twit.tv is our email address, and you can give us a call. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. Leave us a voicemail. We've been getting some great ones. Thanks, everybody, for those. Keep them coming. Keep them good. Keep them short. That's it for Tech News Today. Mary Jo Foley joins us tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. Of course, we had all this Microsoft news today. Hopefully, we'll have more tomorrow to talk to her about. We'll see you then.
À la prochaine.